I am happy to have Automotive Seminars as a sponsor for the show. Now, if you're not familiar, Automotive Seminars is a diagnostic technician training company. They've got a website that there'll be a link to in the show notes. And what they offer is top-notch training to technicians like us in the field. I've been taking their training courses for years and have got a ton of benefit out of it. They've got top-notch instructors, John Thornton, Scott Shotton, Scott Manna, and every other month they've got a 2-night course that you can sign up for. Join in, ask questions, and afterwards, you've paid for the course, you can access a recorded version whenever you want. You can rewatch the class 2 years later in case you wanted some details on it, and that is a fantastic feature. So make sure to check out the website to see what courses they have available and what's coming up in the future. This podcast is brought to you by Jarhead Diagnostics. Jarhead Diagnostics manufactures in-house diagnostic equipment and storage solutions, as well as distributes for companies like Pico, ATS, and TopDon. One of my favorite tools that I've bought from Brandon and Jarhead Diag is the case for the U-Scope. If you don't have a U-Scope, you probably should, but if you have one, you got to get one of these 3D printed cases, has a magnet on it, has a full-size BNC lead that you can connect to, and it gets rid of the weak point of that scope, which is the mini BNC connection, which is pretty fragile. This case makes this thing nice and secure and makes it an even better tool than it was. So check out jarheaddiag.com. The link is in the show notes. This episode is brought to you by L1 Automotive Training and Keith Perkins. If you're looking for education on module programming, J2534, EEPROM work, key and immobilizer, electrical diagnostics, or drivability diagnostics, Keith has a website, l1training.com, that's got over 60 hours of training videos on all those subjects and more. When I first started out doing mobile, I utilized Keith's videos on module programming in J2534 in order to get my head wrapped around what I would need for the tooling, the computers, the software setups, what kind of obstacles I would be up against when I'm out there programming modules on cars. And it was a huge benefit to me. And I continue to use the training videos that he has on his website. So I strongly recommend checking out l1training.com. We have got Auto Rescue Tools and Isaac Rodell as a sponsor for this podcast. Hey guys, if you're looking for programming laptops, you want the laptop set up ready to go for programming control modules on vehicles, you need key cutting equipment, you need diagnostic tools, Isaac is your guy. Has all that stuff available for purchase, and the support that he offers along with the purchase has been outstanding. I bought some stuff from him in the past. I got my Dolphin key cutting tool from him several years back. And again, the support has been phenomenal. Helped me out along the way with anything additional I needed to make it work for me. Also, for the month of June 2023, they've got Autel updates for sale. So make sure to check that out as well. Again, that's autorescuetools.com. The link will be in the show notes. Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field. Hey, what's up, automotive world? Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tipping. I will be your host today. Thank you so much for joining me. Today on the show, I've got a special guest joining me. He's been on the podcast before, if you've been listening, Tomi Oliva with Trained by Techs. Tommy's going to join me today to talk all about module programming. And if you're considering getting into programming or you just want to learn more about it, maybe you already do it, and you want to pick up some tips, I'll tell you what, there is a lot of really good information within the discussion I had with Tomi today. We cover a wide range of topics, all involving module programming on vehicles. So check this one out for some really good information. Also, before we actually get into the interview, I just want to let everybody know that I am planning on doing a listener Q&A episode sometime in the near future. And what I'm going to do here is get questions from you, the listening audience, and answer them on an episode of the podcast. This can be anything automotive related, particularly diagnostics, fixing vehicles, scan tools, electrical, computers, that sort of thing. The things that we talk about on the podcast. Maybe you need some help with a specific vehicle. Maybe you'd like some advice on purchasing a tool. Maybe you just don't understand a certain aspect of what we're talking about. Anything like that, I'd love to hear your questions. Okay. So, what I'm going to do is, once I get enough questions together, I'm also going to get either one expert or two experts to join me on that episode to help answer these questions, because chances are I can't answer all of them or can't answer all of them as well as someone else could. So I'm going to get a little bit of help here. So again, what I need from you is your questions. And so if you'd like to send those, you can either message me on Facebook. And if you're not on Facebook, I'm going to have you shoot me an email with your question. And you can find that email within the show notes for this episode. So check that out, send your questions, and maybe we'll get them on the air for you. But other than that, let's get into the interview. Well, what's going on, Tommy? How you doing?
Hey, what's up, dude? How's everything in South Canada?
It's nice and cold here today, about 10 degrees, but you're not too farther south. I'm sure it's nice and cold there too.
Bro, the other day I walked outside and I'm just like, man, it's either one or two. It's either the weight I lost or it's either I'm getting older or I don't know what it is, but I remember being younger and playing football in this weather. It was like 30-something degrees. And now I'm just like, I got my Carhartt on and I want to put gloves on. I'm just like, man, what the heck is wrong with me, man?
Yeah. My fingers that's the one thing for me. I can't do the cold for very long. I think it was for wrenching from so many years. At least I'm guessing that's why. They start to like ache when I'm out in the cold. And the rest of me, I'm fine, whatever. But I got to have either big gloves on or hand warmers or something like that for my stupid fingers.
It's man, I don't know what it is, but like I feel it in my bones, and I'm just like, you know what? It probably is. When I started wrenching at the shop, I would we could open the doors and the cars kind of drive through, kind of like a car wash lane or something like that. So I remember like I'd wrench. I didn't have a lift, so I'd just be in the creeper underneath a car, wrenching or whatever, and the both doors would go up, and that nice draft would come in. And I'd be like,
oh man.
So
well, there's nothing like getting a big chunk of cold, sloppy ice down in the back of your shirt working on a car. If you've never experienced that before, that's the absolute worst.
So my lead guy, Caesar, wonderful guy, amazing tech, probably one of the best guys I've ever worked with. He's from Cali. So he saw hail here for the first time. He saw snow, or not for the first time, but he saw like accumulation of snow in the city. One day he was just like, son of a biscuit. And I turn around and look, and he's just shaking his jacket off. And, I was like, welcome to Chicago. You got the northern shower. He's like, that sucks. I said, yes, sir. He got that nice piece of melted ice water right underneath, right in the back of his jacket, dude, right down the back of his spine. Oh, man.
Yeah, that'll wake you up for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, damn. Yeah, we're doing pretty good up here. I'm just wrapping up the semester with the students. Actually, we got two more days. We're doing a performance final with them. We do some written finals and they have tests and stuff, but we do like a performance one where we bug some vehicles and we just
kind of give it to individual students, see if they can work their way through a problem and kind of follow their process. But during the test, I'm just kind of their service writer. I'll give them the information on the vehicle, say this is what the customer has as a concern, and they have to tell me what's wrong, what it needs to fix it, or fix it. And it's all electrical based for this one, and then it's relating to other systems like we went through emissions and stuff like that. But it's pretty fun. I don't know that all the students find it fun, but some of them aren't quite ready for the pressure of just an individual. It's all on you. You don't have a group or an instructor to pull from on it. But I know some of them really shine, and you can really see where maybe there's some shortcomings for next semester, so we can work with them better. But that's the next couple of days, is doing that performance final.
Awesome. No, that's awesome news, man. Especially with everything that's going on.
Yeah, we've been lucky to stay on campus, at least for the shop portion, because everything else around here is shut down at the moment.
Yeah, for sure, dude. It's been really a wrench in 2020 for sure.
No kidding.
No matter how you look at it.
How about you? What do you got going on?
You know what, man? Right now I have a little project that I'll be announcing soon. Not exactly super ready to do so. It's going to be more for my Spanish audience. TBT is working on some things for the new year too. And just trying to expand on my mobile business, man.
Okay.
Just it's kind of getting old, wrenching in the ghetto, man. So
Gotcha.
it's getting tough. So I think right now mobile is going to be my saving grace.
Okay. Well, and that's kind of what we wanted to talk about today, was some programming stuff. You
Yes,
obviously
sir.
do a lot of that with your mobile work, and I'm learning all the time on this programming thing as I go. And there's quite the learning curve to it at first, I think, but then once you get into it, a lot of times with a lot of makes, I find I was like, well, this really isn't that bad. I did a Kia the first time the other day, and I'm like, wow, that was incredibly simple.
Oh, Kia and Hyundai is beautiful, especially you have, HDS and KDS. That's a different story, but even the J2534 is pretty straightforward. Honestly, there's not a lot of difficult programmings, man. There really isn't. I feel like 80% of programming is the fear factor. Like, am I going to damage this module? Am I going to do something? The car's not going to start, blah, blah, blah. Because there's really no set, there's realistically, bar in the exception of some of the resources that we see now. When I first started programming, there was inject. Real talk, man. And you may not believe this, but you know how I found out about Scotty Kilmer? Is my first programming event. I Googled how to program an engine computer because I didn't know any better, right? So I just Googled it. Like, hey, see what I find. What did I see? A video of his, and he's like, we're gonna update this for whatever the heck he had, right? And then it was just a picture of, it was just an easy flasher and a laptop.
Okay.
And then it goes for like 5 minutes, and then there you go, it's programmed. I'm just like, man, what a waste of time. There was literally nothing good in there, nothing at all. Which obviously, but I didn't know. So I was like, man, this guy's a quack. So and this is a funny thing. My experience with programming MO and keys in general was I've always kind of had a knack for diag. And I would, ultimately get, a Nissan back IAC motor, or, common fail ECMs that needed key relearns, even older GMs, before I knew about, calibrations and stuff like that. You just did, the 30-minute relearn, car started, and didn't have any weird codes in it, and you're done, ship it. But my problem came in, I had everybody around me used to call it local locksmith guy. Because that's who you called. You called the locksmith. You want to program something, it was either dealer or locksmith. Around me anyway. I didn't know at the time of any mobile programming companies. I didn't know any better. One, I had an issue with a Ford that they weren't able to program, and I got charged for whatever reason. And I remember the second one was a Volkswagen, a PCM replacement. So the locksmith comes in, and in hindsight now, I didn't know what he was doing at first. What I realized is that he was trying to program the keys. Well, obviously, on a Volkswagen, you don't have to program keys. It's just copying the information from the old module to the new donor one. So he battled with it for like an hour and a half, wasn't able to do anything, and he was still trying to charge me. And I'm like, dude, you quoted me like $250 for this, which is fine. I mean, I don't mind, but you weren't able to. He's like, your computer's no good. I said, how is it no good? I can talk to it. He's like, your used one's no good. I said, I can talk to it. So it's not that, it's you. So I'm not paying you. Like, I remember this argument. So I refused to use them. And then I got from one of my dealer customers a 2007 Fusion. You already know what that needs, spark plugs, coils, and a computer. So after I did the diag, they got me a used PCM. So at this point, I'm sorry, I kind of fast forward in my career. I ended up buying a 90AP, an Autor 90AP. That one comes with a J-box. Sure. So, I found some service information saying you need, IDS or whatever. Put it this way, I had a laptop, I had the device. I'm like, dude, I don't care if this takes me a week. I'm going to figure it out. It took me 2 days.
Okay.
Not like on the car 2 days, but, from, taking care of the shop and coming back and forth, running back and forth, everything was matter of fact, if I remember right, I ran out of my script. By the time I actually got everything together, because then it was always something like, why is this little red light on? Oh, the battery went dead. Dang it. I'll go charge the battery up or whatever. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. I got the PMI done, blah, blah, blah. Why doesn't it want to start? Go into patch. Oh, you need 2 keys. Oh, now wait, I have to go get another key. And the keys after that, the keys wouldn't learn. It turns out it had a halo from a cheap remote start. And so I had another key under the column. So that was a learning experience. Like, it was everything. Like, it fought me every way through, but I did it. Like I said, in about 2 days, 2.5 days, I finally knocked it out. And I was able to start this car and had the latest calibration loaded into it. And I was thrilled and I was hooked.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool feeling that first time when everything ends up good.
And there's been some bumps along the road. Like I ran into GM issues, class 2 issues, and I couldn't, for the life of me figure out what it was. And not for nothing, I gained more experience in programming through Facebook. A lot of the original, automotive technicians group, technical training group, like a lot of these groups were really instrumental in me, furthering my career. So it's like, in hindsight, I wouldn't do anything differently. I just wish I had somebody to help. A lot of people don't really realize that as long as you do your homework and the legwork, nobody's going to tell you no. Nobody's not going to help you. There's so many people out there who are in that position. That's why I am the way I am. Like, I field calls from people all day long, and it doesn't bother me. What does bother me is I'll get text messages from people with a bunch of codes. What do you think is wrong?
Yeah.
Not even hello, how's it going? Where you been? No, just a screenshot of some Snap-on tool with a P04 something or whatever. What do you think it is? I don't know. What do you think it is? Well, I don't know.
Just send them a link to Google.
Yeah, so that's what about you, man? How was your first programming event?
Well, for me, it was what you mentioned. I learned about this stuff on Facebook because my time at Firestone when I was a tech, I never did any of it. I didn't even know that it was available to technicians outside the dealership. We just always sent everything to the dealer that we had to do. And, for a long time, I don't know, we didn't see that much. It'd be just here and there, not enough to really make a dent in what we were doing. It was just the occasional inconvenience that you send the GS to the dealer with the car or the customer or get it towed or whatever. It didn't really matter to us, but more and more frequently we're running into things. And I remember there was a Ford actually, and it was an instrument cluster that I think somebody had put in from one in a junkyard, and it didn't have air conditioning set up in the parameters for the cluster or something like that. And I think I did enough reading to find out like there was a possibility to change that within the module, to set it up, to program it, to do whatever. And I was reading and I'm like, well, this can be done, but I don't have any of the equipment. And it kind of got me going down the path, again, going to Facebook, like you said, and finding out that, oh, wow, there is a lot available to technicians in the aftermarket outside of dealerships. And I got into it very slowly, but I ended up finding out that there's a guy that runs a company down in the cities. I live about half hour north of the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and he runs the area down there pretty well. But I'm up north, and I was asking around to a lot of shops, and nobody does it up here. Like nobody programs in my area at all besides the dealerships. And I'm like, well, I might as well give this a shot. So I kind of slowly accumulated GM, Ford, Chrysler, and GM was my first experience. So I feel like that was a nice, easy one to do for your first time. But the one I did, it was a fuel pump control module on a GM truck, and it had popped the fuse for the module when it went out or whatever happened. And so I'm trying to program this new module and it won't communicate with it. And I'm like, oh, I messed something up right away. I bricked this thing. I screwed it up, but it just turned out I had to put a fuse in there so it could talk to the programming device. But we figured that out and we got through it. And yeah, like that, when it finally gets done that first time, you're sitting there just watching that bar go across. It's a good feeling to have it done. And then you do it so many times after, and it's just like, okay, whatever, just hit the button, something will happen.
I've never been spooked programming. I really haven't. Because most of the times, honestly, where I'm at, 80% of the stuff I see is older. So when I do something dicey, I usually make a phone call to a junkyard. I'm like, oh, it's $50. Ah, okay, it's worth breaking this junk if it's $50. I'll just, I'll play around with it or whatever. When the second generation Auto pass-through came out, I actually flashed a 2007 Infiniti G35 with that pass-through, with using NERS.
Really?
And I had never use NERS at this point before, but with my buddy Keith's help, he helped me set up NERS, and I just went through the motions like it was just any normal programming event. But if you've programmed Nissans, right, with NERS?
I got the consult for that because there's a bunch of transmission shops up here around me, and I figured I was going to be doing enough of them, and I need that CD thing, so I went for it.
I'm so mad, dude. I used to get calls all the time for this thing until I finally broke down and bought a VI, and got consult set up and everything. And if I had 3 calls since I bought it, bro, it's too much. I literally used to get a call once a week, man.
Oh man. Yeah, that's the way it works. I had to wait like 9 months to get that pass through. It was ridiculous.
Guys at AES, man, they Carlos, man, I actually reached out to him and I asked him, where what did he recommend on me getting one? He actually got one for me.
Oh, okay.
It took like 2 weeks.
Oh, damn. He's got to know the right people.
Yeah, no, for sure. It does help, man. There's some wonderful people in the industry. But like I said, I've programmed with Zentree, BMW with ISTA, and honestly, they're not hard. Like Zentree is such an amazing tool. It's such a wonderful tool.
I would hope so for 30 grand.
Man, it's definitely pricey, but I think they'd have more. Right now, they're doing a lot in terms of the pirating.
Oh, okay.
And locking out logins and but the issue I see is I think they should just make it more accessible. You don't have to change the price, Like keep it at whatever, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year, but just, why do I have to, fork over $30K and then wait, 6, 7 months to get it?
Yeah.
So that's the.
They have some stuff going. I don't do any Mercedes, but they have some stuff going on with parts too, right? As far as like actually purchasing parts, you have to be at the dealer.
Well, you know what? Honestly, I haven't run into that yet because, like I said, for the most part, I'm already at the shops doing like transmissions and stuff like that. But me personally, I've never actually had to buy a part, it's a theft part.
Okay.
Anything that's theft related, the valve bodies, the steering locks, keys, and stuff like that. I was told, I don't know, maybe somebody will correct me. That if you don't have an LSID, then the owner has to actually go into the dealer to purchase the parts. Not even the shop where the vehicle is at. The owner has to actually physically go in, and that's something that I was told by my local Mercedes dealer. I never asked him about the LSID because I'm in the process of getting mine. But again, I've never had to actually buy a part.
Yeah, I haven't either. I just I think I've read some about it, and then I work with another instructor at the college who works for Mercedes, and he was telling me even I guess within the dealership, there's only certain people who can, I don't know, order certain parts or purchase certain parts. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but I was hearing they're having some crackdowns on security as far as their cars go. So yeah, I don't do a ton of Euros because, well, I shouldn't say I don't really program any Euros because I have such a low volume for that. I'll get like one call on a BMW maybe every other month, and then some Volkswagens, Audis here and there, but it's not anywhere near enough for me to invest in the tooling. I think if I was closer to the cities that would be different, but
yeah,
for me it's all domestic and Asian. That's 90% of what I see around my area. So that's what I've stuck with.
I see a lot of older BMWs.
Okay.
A lot of older BMWs and a lot of used parts. I had a really fascinating one as of late. I actually ended up using my Drive Pro for this one. So yeah, OEM is always going to be the best way to go. And unfortunately, I'm more of the whatever works. And whatever I can do, in terms of programming, in terms of, getting the car out of my shop is what I'm going to do. So if it's launch, if it's auto, if it's, auto logic.
Make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of, this whole, the industry is no good because a lot of us don't use the OEM procedures, blah, blah, blah. Well, you can brick an HIH with, you can brick an HIH module using ICOM and NISTA. I mean, ICOM was down for, I think, 2 months almost, 2.5 months.
Oh, wow.
So sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. And I'm the type of person that says, as long as you don't, screw over a customer, and do what you got to do. So this one actually came in. This one was really funny. It was a 2009 3 Series. It was a 328i or something like that. The customer this was exact words. My lights ain't working. I said, well, which ones? Well, some of them and not all of them. Okay, so which one is it? Which ones are, okay, let's start with this. Which ones are working and which ones aren't working? Well, my headlights turn on, but they stay on. The turn signals work, but then they don't work. And then the brake lights, only the third light works, but only if the lights are off. Okay, cool. All right, I mean, I'll, authorize diag, whatever. We'll look at it. I was like, you know what, man? Let me scan this thing first. I scanned it. And of course, this thing had like 60-something codes, all these modules, but I was just like, whatever. I went to the light module, or LMA, whatever it's called. I go in there, and it had a bunch of weird codes. I wish I documented them. I didn't. But in my experience with BMWs and some Euros, when you have a lot of plausibilities or certain codes that really kind of don't make sense, that usually means there's a coding issue.
Okay.
So then I called the customer. I said, hey, man, like, what happened here? Like, can you give me some more info? When did this start? He's like, oh, I got into a little accident, and they replaced the right headlight and a little black box. So I didn't really question the customer further. I'm like, oh, okay. So then this light module, I started looking at the lights. They're adaptive lights.
Okay.
So anybody knows that you have adaptive lights, they need to be coded to the light module before anything. So I said, all right, Mr. Customer, before we proceed to any diag, I go, you need to authorize X amount of money because I need to code this module. I need to code the light to the module. Or you want to take it back to wherever they installed it. She's like, man, they don't know what they were doing, blah, blah, blah. Just do it. Okay. I code the module, but at this point, this is where service information actually would have been in my favor because I went for a loop. I plug in the tool. I look at the coding, and it gave me an error. Do you want to code this module? It has this VIN number. It has a VIN number, and then the cast has a different VIN number. So in my mind, since I know where I'm at, I remember one time I got bit this way because somebody had replaced the DME on one, and instead of actually, doing it the proper way, they replaced a used DME, got a donor key, and a donor cast that came from the same vehicle.
Oh, okay.
So I remember messing with the VIN number, and I bricked the cast, even though it wasn't my fault. But I just didn't know. The customer didn't know either. They just took it to a shop and fixed a problem, but they could not get all the other lights to go off. It had ABS lights, it had, airbag lights, radio wouldn't work. It was just like a really messed up situation. But anyway, so I said, well, you know what? Let's just go with the coding that's in the light module now. We'll code this headlight. So instead of 10 codes after this, I have 20 codes. So I'm like, okay, this has just got interesting. So I call back the customer again. I'm like, hey, that's it. All you did was replace the headlight. And I assumed when he said black box, it was the ballast.
Yeah.
Because he just kind of, sequentially said it. He's like, yeah, and that black box I told you about. I said, where does this black box go? Oh, underneath the dashboard, right there by the brakes, by the brake pedal. I'm like, oh, okay. So we have two problems. I said, now we have to code this light module. Now I have to recode this one, blah, blah, blah. So authorize the coding or whatever. So I went back, and then I ended up coding the light module first with the VIN from the cast, which is the vehicle's VIN.
Okay.
Then I was able to code the adaptive lighting, and boom, no more codes. Everything was back up and running.
Nice.
It was. I haven't seen this before. Honestly, I've done, like I said, BMWs and stuff, but this was actually a very particularly interesting one. I know it's a little older, but for where I'm at, it's probably about the right age, about 10-year-old.
Sure. What's the difference? I hear the word coding a lot on European stuff. What's the difference between coding something and then like programming a control module, or is there a difference between the two?
I love that question. There's a big difference. Coding is you have a module, and you're not changing the software in it. What you're doing is you are introducing the vehicle to the module.
Okay.
Remember, some cars have fog lights, some cars don't. So let's say, for example, if you put in a used light module from this certain vehicle, most of the times they use the same modules, but it's just the coding. The coding is basically you're adapting the module to the car. Gotcha. Without changing the software.
Okay.
Programming is actually changing the software. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's actually the easiest way I can put it.
Okay. What would you call Ford as built when you're at punching in the codes?
As built?
Would that be coding or a software change? I mean, it's you can pull stuff from the server. You can type it in. I don't know what you classify that as.
I classify that more as coding, to be very honest with you, because you could pull it from the server, but it's the same numbers.
It's just putting the numbers in there for
correct.
you.
Basically that's what it is. It's like instead of you actually typing them in, they're finding them off the server and putting them in for you. Because remember, you still have to do your PMI. Just sometimes the module's blank, so you actually have to find as built. And I don't know if you noticed that, but on some BCMs, like I've had to do, especially the ones that are dead, that I can't do a PMI on, I've done as-built PMI programming and then pads. That's the only, and then after that, the tire relearns and the remotes, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. Yeah, that's always interesting. Sometimes some Ford modules, it won't let you go through the PMI, so you have to go through the as-built and then pull the data and then go back in and then do the PMI. I've run into that a couple times on certain ones, and I don't know, the IDS software, the scan tool, it really guides you through it pretty well, I think. I mean, you read what's on the screen. Okay, I'll go here. All right, I'm connected to the internet, and all right, I'll go to this next step. I don't know. I found most of the factory interfaces that I've used are actually pretty straightforward as long as you can read directions.
That's a problem. A lot of people. One of the best forms of advice I have for people that are starting to learn, your treat all your programmings like they were your first. Take the extra minute, read. When you're in GM, make sure you select the right calibrations. You know, go through that nasty ass trunk and find the RPO codes. Go in through that nasty ass glove box and get the RPO codes. I mean, like, you know, as long as you follow the procedures, man, it's pretty tight, man. I have yet to brick anything, and I'm reckless. I mean, I've done some really reckless stuff, but you know, things that people probably wouldn't normally try. I'm gung ho. I'm like, all right, let's do it. Like it's just, it is what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like anything that I can't do, things that I won't do are things that I can't back up. So if I break something, I know is because either I can replace it or I can actually repair it.
Okay, you can recover it once it's
correct.
Okay, and so when you say bricking control module, the one for me is the older GM Class 2. I was using a tool that was way too fast, and it just gave me the B-bonk, and that was it. But when the module's bricked, do you have any chance of recovering it, or is it just going to depend on the situation?
It depends on the situation. I'll tell you this right now. Anybody that does a GM programming and it stops, do not cycle the key.
Okay.
Let it retry, and it's going to give you a failure, and try it again. Figure out what went wrong. Try it again. Do not cycle the key. You know what? With me, I've never bricked the GM, and a lot of people have said that they've had bad luck. I came close to bricking a Class 2 once. It was on the Envoys Trailblazer. That model has given me a little bit of issues at the beginning. At first, I would just not even waste my time. I would just disconnect the network. And then just basically go straight to the splice. Then actually GM figured out what was going on, because I guess they were even having problems at the dealership. And right before you, that's why I say, you know, always read, because right before you start the programming, it says pull 2 fuses. Those fuses are actually for the 2 other modules that are on the network that conflict, which is the ABS module and the airbag module.
That's funny. I just did one of those this past week, and yeah, if you take the time to read that screen, it tells you what fuse box and what fuses to pull, and it's easy to just click next and go past it. But I guess that is a really good piece of advice, is to take your time and read what the scan tool is telling you. But I think also the service information ahead of time. Just always take the time to pull up the procedure, even if it's, you know, aftermarket service information, all data, Mitchell, whatever. Go through the procedure and see, is there anything else I have to do in addition to hitting buttons? Is there something else here that needs to happen that's maybe it's not going to tell me this in the scan tool? And that can be really important too. And that's where I've definitely wasted some time because I didn't do that ahead of time.
Well, when I started having issues with not reading was when I started doing BCM programming. Okay. So I have an account. It's a body shop, and they actually have an account with the Chicago Park District, and they have nothing but, you know, Silverados, Rams, and F-150s, transit vans, etc. And it's a pattern failures. They do a lot of tip-ums. They do a lot of, you know, GM airbag modules. And they do a lot of Ford BCMs for some reason. They do a lot of them. I get at least 2 or 3 of them a month from them. Okay. And so the BCMs, they all have different procedures, and it's a real pain. I know now, but once you finish doing the PMI on those BCMs, there's a a big list of do CEI lock, do patch relearn,
TPMS.
TPMS. If it has power locks, then you have to have remotes. And then, well, what do I do if I don't have remotes or TPMS sensors? Well, what you can do is stock them. Buy 4 TPMS sensors, and then buy a couple remotes, and you'll be able to knock it out that way. The transit vans have, a similar. You don't have to do remotes, but the transit vans you actually have to go into configuration data. And I forget the name is escaping me right now, but after you do the PMI, there's another process for it where you have to go in and find, I think it's called configuration information from the vehicle.
Okay.
I don't know if you ran into one of those Transit 250s, the big boys.
I have not yet. Yeah, the extra steps for sure on some of this stuff. It sometimes it's in the tool, sometimes it tells you, and sometimes you got to read about it. But yeah, if you don't do that, something's not going to work. Like, well, those Fords, I know on the trucks, if you don't do the TPMS, the dome light will just flash consistently as long as the key
or the remotes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the remotes. And the first time I did it, I'm like, what the heck's going on here? Because I think it was one where I only had one functioning key fob, and luckily they had another key up front for a different Ford that worked for that one. But awesome. I think that's a good idea to stock it in your van so you're just ready to go. Or heck, I mean, you could even sell the shop the remote or key or whatever you need to.
That's how I got into keys, because especially this shop, they never have 2 keys. They do a bunch of Ford PCMs also on the trucks. They've done some, VTD modules on Silverados, Express vans, and on those. Anytime you do a new one, flash it, you need a new key.
Okay.
So I just started, I got my buddy Isaac. He set me up with a really nice with a key machine and some stock, and then I ended up just buying some more stock, on my own.
Which key machine do you have? Because I've actually been looking into
the Dolphin.
Okay.
I have the Dolphin. I think it's a great starter key, a starter machine, because it's not expensive. It's relatively inexpensive in the grand scheme of things. It's battery powered, so if you don't have like a big mobile rig, like a big transit van or a Sprinter, then it's perfect, because you don't have to run a big inverter to power it. I will say the cons of it are I don't like the way it cuts blade keys.
Okay.
It takes some dialing into the machine. It's not just plug and play and let's go and calibrate it. No, it took me many keys to dial her in. That's why I get blanks. And when I started with keys, what I ended up doing was I took all the stock that I got with Isaac for him, and I got super chips, because you can make a key for like under $5.
Okay.
And all my best friends, family, anybody that I knew that had a car with a transponder, I actually made them a key, and that's how I started practicing. And it also taught me how to look at biting information and what blade is for what, where I can find this information, because it's not easy to find. It's really not out there.
Yeah, that locksmith type thing is a whole nother side of things, which you end up running into doing this. If you're programming a lot of control modules, you run into the anti-theft components and keys. And so, yeah, you got to be prepared for that ahead of time. You did mention the LSID or VSP credential earlier. How often do you run into a situation where you need that?
I ran into it once, where I had to turn, and it was at this shop. It was a 2018 Super Duty, an F350. Yeah, I wasn't able to. I did everything, and I was hoping it wasn't, but it definitely was an LSID car, and I wasn't able to go around it.
Is that the FDRS setup for Ford?
No, that one still was IDS.
Was it? Okay.
Well, it might have been a 17, possibly. Don't correct me. I just know it was an LSID car for sure. It wouldn't let me. It wouldn't let me do the BCM.
Okay.
It wouldn't let me do the parameter reset, for the BCM. And none of my aftermarket tools that I had that can do a parameter reset on older Fords, it doesn't work. So you're kind of stuck there. You actually have to have your LSID.
And that seems to be becoming more and more common on different things where you need that NASTF, the SDRM login.
Mm-hmm.
They give you it's like an app that you download, and it's a 2-factor authorization thing where you put
just like YTech.
Yeah, very similar to OCTA or whatever it is for that. I got my LSID for what I'm doing because I run into that here and there, and I wanted to be able to say yes to stuff. The Chrysler stuff, I know you can get the PIN codes from the older ones, but I know a lot of the newer ones now, it's a rolling code, and so you got to get it through that, and the dealers can't give out the codes anymore, or so I'm told, that the dealer codes are different than the aftermarket codes on a lot of these Chryslers now.
So for the pods, correct. So if you have an aftermarket YTech pod, software, obviously, the dealer connect pod, the PIN code that you get from the dealer, let's say you call it in and they give you the PIN, is going to be for the dealer connect pod. So so it's not going to work. You have to go through NASTF.
Okay. So I don't know. I mean, if you're doing a lot of programming, it's just something you got to consider. And you're going through the process. What do you got to do to get the LSID, or I think it's called the VSP credential now.
VSP credential. Yeah. I have an issue with my insurance. I started the process, and then I got paperwork from my insurance lady, and it wasn't worded right. Then she got COVID, and I got busy, so I have to follow through. As soon as I follow through, then it'll go in, and I'm pretty sure I'll get it back within a couple weeks or so, because they've done a great job of making the system a little bit easier.
Yeah. There's been some updates. I know they just redid their site, and they're linking it with diag.net and everything. That insurance thing, boy, I went through that, getting the correct wording on there, and it was it was quite the battle going back and forth with my insurance agent, and I think we had to try like 4 different times to get the right document so that they would accept it and I'd be good to go. But you got to have business insurance. You have to have and that coverage to cover you up to so many dollars, business license, and then I think a locksmith license in certain states as well in order to qualify. And then there's a fee that you pay on top of it for the application process.
So I've been procrastinating, not gonna lie. Like I said, most of the vehicles I service are older, and it was just once in 2 years that I've needed an LSID, and I had to turn down the job. But I feel going forward is going to be very, very important to have it. And I think, sometimes for the better of the industry in certain ways. I know there's different opinions on it, but I feel like the biggest issue I have. What are you charging for handling LSID?
It's based on, obviously, if I'm using it, I got to go through the process because it's time consuming. You got to get all the customer information and all that stuff. So it's a little extra paperwork and stuff you got to do. And then there's also going to be the cost of whatever it is for the code. So that's, depending on the manufacturer, maybe another $20-$25 on top of everything else. So obviously I'm going to charge whatever the manufacturer charges, and then an extra fee on top of that. And a lot of times it tacks on an extra $50 to the bill. Maybe I, should be doing more than that, but I feel like that's worth the extra time for me. And then it's $400 every 2 years, I think, is the application fee.
Yeah, that's around here. That's for the most part. My colleagues that are in the mobile business that already have their LSIDs, that's what they're charging, $50 for the handling and the documentation and the extra stuff, aside from if they actually bought a code or a key cut code or something to that extent.
Yeah. And I mean, that's That's one of the things I have found that people call me for, even shops that have some programming capabilities, is that's an obstacle they'll run into occasionally, where if they don't have it, there's no way around it. They've got to call somebody in, that has that capability. So I look at it as, in the future, it's going to be, a money making thing, or a thing to get me in the door some places where maybe I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. Just one more, thing that you can offer to the shops to make you valuable, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And the bad part is, and I feel that this is very unfair for the mobile guys, is the dealer system doesn't have to deal with any of this as long as the car's in their possession.
Okay.
So that, I don't here, the difference here in Chicago would be that there's the huge advantage is me going to the customer, even if it is an extra $50 to $100. You're not losing the time back and forth of the dealer, and it's now. Like, if I schedule you in for tomorrow, we're gonna knock this out tomorrow. Not that the dealer might be 2 or 3, 4 days out.
Yep. Yeah, and
So,
maybe a tow bill on top of it.
correct, and a possible tow bill and a possible tow back if they misdiagnosed it.
Yeah.
So that's the advantages that I keep trying to preach.
Well, I'll tell you what, when you mentioned getting it towed back because they diagnosed it wrong, most of my shops that I do diagnostic work for now, it's because they've called me in for programming and it didn't fix the problem. And then I offered the diagnostic services. Not a whole lot of shops, there are some, but not a whole lot of shops call me first for diagnostics. I don't know if it's a pride thing or what it is, but the programming gets me in the door a lot of places. That alone, I think, is worth offering the service so that I can get in there and hopefully make some money on diagnosis if I don't mess it up. But
so I actually might be changing my business plan a little bit, because I'm having a tough time finding really good diag customers. I don't have a problem with programming, just a little bit, because I do charge generally a little bit more. I had a new customer call me the other day, and not the other day, it was probably like a couple months back, and he goes like, "Hey, I heard you can probably come out today and program this GM." I forgot which one it was. I know it was a GM. He's like, "Oh yeah, what are you charging?" I told him, "Oh, GM, since you're this radius, it's $150." And he's like, "Oh no, man, that's too much, man." He's like, "I got a guy that does it for $100. He just can't come out today." I said, "Well, then you just have to wait another day or pay the $50. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, man. That's my minimum." He's like, "No, I'll just wait." I said, "Okay." And the guy never called me back. So I'm just like, "Man, who's doing it for $100?" I'm just like, I'm just wondering. I'm curious. I'm like, it's $40 for GM, unless you pay the the money for. Well, at this point, tech line still wasn't up and running, so it was, you had to circumvent, the fact that you paid $40 per min by getting like an SPS login or whatever. So I'm just like, man, that guy's really doing it for $60. Well, I mean, I've being where I'm at, I got key cutters. I call them key cutters because they're on locksmiths that post ads on Facebook they'll do $40 for like a high security key, or $50 or something like that, or for a cut and copy basically. So I'm like, that's not surprising. Turns out a couple months, I was hanging out with a friend who is a master tech at GM. He's the one running around doing these programmings for $100 because he has an MDI too, and he has a login. So then I'm just like, dude, you're stupid. He's like, why, man? It's easy. I'm like, dude, it's not that. Like, I don't care. You can do whatever the heck you want. I go, but you're losing out. It's not me. It's you. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, at least charge $140. If you charge $140, I go, and you do 10 of them every 2 months, man, that's an extra $400. You don't want an extra $400? So I convinced him to start raising his prices.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I know it's a tough thing for me to go in and say, yes, it's X amount of money for this. But yeah, you have to value what you're doing, your time, your knowledge, your tooling, all that stuff, because it is worth it to these shops. I mean, if you got somebody who's not grateful and it's not a good shop to work with, then don't work with them. But the ones that do appreciate you coming in and making it happen fast, like you said, like they call me up, okay, I'll be there this afternoon, we'll get it done. That's worth something, you know, and just lost time for the shop. It's worth that extra money easily.
Well, no, I totally agree, but I mean, the issue I've run into with the shops that I've recently fired, because I actually just did a mass wave of like, you know what, I'm just not going back.
Okay.
Because you know, they want me to marry the cars, man, and it's just like, no, man, I can't. Like, you literally, like, you misdiagnosed it,
Yeah.
and then on top of the fact that you misdiagnosed it, you replaced it with a really, you know, inferior part. So now I have to unscrew the vehicle by diagnosing your bad part, and then now, if obviously it doesn't fix it, you want me to come back out, and it's the same charge. And dude, I can't do that, man. And you know, at the beginning, I was just like, you know, it's easy. I'll just, you know, blah blah blah. But now it's just to a point where it's just like it's annoying.
Well, and if you've got so many more appointments stacked up for the rest of the day, it ruins everything. If now, you know, now you got to spend X amount of time trying to figure out a problem that you didn't have built into the schedule.
Yeah, that's the big one too, man. And so all in all, it's I think I'm still gonna do what I'm doing. I might just change some things up a little bit because I
Okay.
do still have a home base. I still have a shop. So I was just thinking of just doubling my diag fee and having them send it to the shop instead. Because there
Okay.
I'm comfortable. I'm in my element. I can lift up a car. Sometimes, like over the summer, I had to diag cars in the gravel lot because they didn't have any room inside, and which I don't mind, but it's just like, dude, like right now in the winter, no way. Mm-mm.
Right. Well,
No way.
even in the summer, you're out in the lot just baking in the sun. So I know the feeling for sure. Um, do you get a lot of calls when they ask you about programming a module? Can you program this module? Do you get a lot of calls? Can I put a used one in or not? And if you do, how do you know? I mean, obviously that's a big question. It depends on the vehicle, but what do you use? Is it just experience, or do you have a resource to find the information whether a
And
used module can be used in something?
now you're talking my language, my friend. 95% of all the work I do, man, is mainly use modules, bro. That's how
Okay.
I know. Just trial and error. Um, I actually kind of like doing used modules, mainly because one, like, you know, you get experience, you know, over time. You learn what you can and can't do.
Sure.
It really depends on the shop. So I just tell them, listen, just letting you know that this isn't the proper procedure. It's supposed to be new. We can go out there and I'll make the attempt. If it fails, this is how much I'll charge you. If you want to risk it, then give me the new part and we're done. This is how much it's going to cost you to do it. For the most part, it's just my experience, honestly. There really isn't a manual on it. You know, it's just, you know, the other day I did a 2016 Transit 250 used BCM. I didn't think it was going to work. It worked.
Nice.
Yeah. So sometimes there's things that can, things that can't, but you know, it's the experience, honestly. I know, for example, Nissans after 2013, you're no dice, man. Most like Chrysler, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I've done a couple used modules on Rams, on even the RFA Rams, the newer ones, like 13 and above. I've done a couple of them. I know, for example, the RFA vehicles like the Dart, the Fiat-based systems don't really allow for used modules, which would
Okay.
be like the Dart, the 200, the little Fiat 500. So I
Yeah, I was
just
wondering how that works with their VIN token, that system that they have now. I mean, even on some of the older stuff, do you got to get 2 tokens to do a used module? Or I haven't tried that yet.
no, because it's depending on the module, but I use Tech, so I haven't done one of those yet. But when I
Okay.
do, I'll report back to you.
Okay.
But from what I know, no, because it'll populate the VIN that's in the gateway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then the module that you're doing will set a VIN mismatch configuration mismatch code.
Gotcha.
So I'm glad you brought that up. Have you used TechLine Connect yet?
No, I watched Matt Skundridge's video on it a month or so back, and I'll definitely be switching to that at some point. But I'm still using the short-term VIN subscription right now.
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be I'm already seeing like faults. Like the other day, a friend of mine, he didn't have the file for a 2016 Trax PCM.
Really?
Yeah, so there's already issues coming along with it.
Do you know when they're making that switch?
They already did.
But are they going to make it so you can't get, or you can't do the per VIN purchase?
That's what it seems like.
Okay.
That's what it really seems like. I just if that was your question, I'm sorry. But that's what it really seems like, that they're going to start transitioning to SPS 2.
Okay.
Or maybe they might just make that standalone.
Gotcha.
Without the, the field reports, the service information, etc. One interesting tidbit on that one is it's annoying. So when you're doing the used module on an older GM, you can't let the PCM, you can't let TechLine populate the VIN.
Okay.
If it populates the VIN, it'll populate the VIN in the donor PCM. If you're doing a PCM.
Okay.
Right.
Sure.
So it'll populate that VIN. So you can't do that. So you have to actually manually input the VIN, goes through, connects to the VI, and then it says, "Oh, you have more than one VIN in this vehicle. Do you wish to proceed?" Yes. You start going into the programming. It tells you again, "Do you wish to proceed or you want to cancel?" "No, I want to proceed." And then right before you flash it, it tells you again,
Okay.
"Do you want to proceed or blah blah blah?" So it's annoying.
But it still can be done, even with that system. That's
yeah,
good.
it's just annoying. Like, cause
Okay.
with SPS, you actually just don't populate it. You put in the VIN number, and then you bring up the module, you flash it, and you're done.
Okay. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of doing it with Fords, where you do the key off. But if you're trying to do a used, I know PCM, because it pulls the VIN from the PCM. You do key off, and then eventually it just asks you for a tear tag or whatever, and you put that in. That I've used that method a couple times for used PCMs on Fords, but I think the newest one I've done on those, I'm trying to think, for a used one, I think it was like a 2012 or 13 or something like that, like a F-150, I think.
Where it gets a little tricky on used modules is Euro stuff without specialty tools. Like using strictly factory procedures, for the most part, there's not a lot of used modules you can do. BMWs and Volkswagens are pretty good about it. I don't know much about newer BMWs. I know newer Volkswagens have component protection, so basically you can do anything used on those for the most part. It just has to use Otis.
Oh, okay.
BMW, a lot of modules can actually be recoded. The big no-nos are CAS and the DME, or EWS if it's really older. Like I said, most of my stuff is probably like 10 years old by now. Most of my heavy everyday type of work. Trying to think. Yeah, man, it's just anything can be done. Even like with Mercedes and DMEs and and BMW DMEs. As long as you have specialty tools, you can actually clone them. But that's a whole different ballgame right there.
Yeah, it's something that I am just starting to learn a little bit about, is the cloning of modules and actually getting down to the board level and looking at EPROMs and stuff like that. And I'm a complete newbie on that stuff, but I'm trying to soak in some information as I go here.
Me too, man. It's really good, man. There's not really a lot of information on it, man. It seems like it gets worse. Like, you don't really see a lot of programming stuff. Like, you go into service manuals, you really don't see any of how to do it. But it's out there. The locksmith stuff is a little bit more tight knit. This EPROM is, pretty much locked down. I was actually, me and Matt Fanzo were in one of the first EPROM classes held by Mike Christofferson.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called it Promicon. So
I was actually chatting with him on Facebook recently. They've got one out in Vegas
yeah,
in
man,
February. I might be going to that.
I should be there actually. I went to the first
Awesome.
one. I'm gonna go to this one. He's teaming up with my good friend Pedro. So if you guys are interested in getting your feet wet, this is a drop in the bucket. It's not, to my opinion, it's not expensive at all. To just knowing the confidence and the knowledge that you're gonna gain, it's well worth it. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm not even trying to promote anything, but it's just that there's nothing on this out there at all.
Right. Yeah, you got to watch YouTube videos, and I mean, it's barely getting any concept of what's going on there. So
Yeah, exactly. So it's definitely going to be worth it. And there's like I said, as long as you do your due diligence, man. If Facebook is there's some really great devices now. It's anybody. In my opinion, if you were to ask me what devices or how I would start, I would have to absolutely say a Cardac 3.
Okay. That's going to have the best coverage. I know it's supported by a lot of vehicle manufacturers, I think.
Yeah, man, it's it's covered. You can use you can register it for White Tech 2. It's just such a versatile tool. It's also I don't know if have you played with the Nissan right to repair consult. So it's the only device that's authorized for it.
Okay.
So you don't have to buy. You pay $30 and you get consult R2R, which is all the programming.
Yeah, that's there's quite a few newer vehicles. If you got a good J-Box, you can get factory scan tool set up on there. It's pretty cool. I think Ford's like that too with the FDRS, right? That's pretty much factory application right through a J-Box.
Correct. Yeah, pretty much everything for most vehicles after 20. It starts some of them 17, 18. I think is the actual year where it's all J-Box pretty much, and the specific program.
So yeah, Cardac 3 is going to cover you on a lot of makes and models. What would you recommend for a laptop? And maybe with that, is it multiple laptops or partition hard drive, or what's the best way to go there? I mean, maybe for somebody that's starting out.
It depends on your budget, man. There's nothing like actually buying something that's ready to go. But there's, obviously anything that conveniences you is going to cost you. So if you can't really swing, that much, I mean, I'd go, if you can't go with like a nice multi-boot, like from like Isaac's, for example, it's a wonderful setup for especially a beginner, because for the most part, he comes with support.
Okay.
You call him, and either me or Keith, somebody's always going to be on the other end of the line to give you a hand. Like I said, this isn't I'm not advertising anything. I am making nothing out of none of this. It's just these options weren't there. If they were there when I first started, I would have went this way, because sometimes it's not so much about the equipment, it's the helping hand that you can get at your fingertips. But if you don't have that much money to invest, honestly, man, a Dell with at least an i7, a tough book, $400 or $500, you can find them. Nice used one. And I mean, the beautiful part about tough books is you can swap drives. So you can have White Tech, obviously it's cloud based, so you can have big 3 on one laptop. GM, and then if you have a CF53, then you can slap in you can put another hard drive, then you can use Mazda IDS if you have it, or one of the other Bosch based tools, Honda HDS, or IHDS. So to keep them separately. Other than that, I mean, I run a multi-boot. I got 2 of Isaac's laptops.
Okay.
And I really like them because they're so versatile. But a lot of people actually prefer to have a cheaper laptop, but just have multiples of them for different purposes. And the main purpose is hard drive failure. It happens. Like, you're going to damage your laptop, and then what if you have everything on one and you're kind of screwed? But if you have like multiples, then you're covered, and that's where the CF53 shines, because like I said, you can just have a whole bunch of different stuff on different hard drives, swap them in, and you're good to go.
Okay. Yeah, I got a couple old of the CF19s where they have the hard drives you can pop in and out, but those are kind of outdated at this point. They're not good without anything besides 7.
Yeah, unfortunately those are on their way out. But yeah, I have a CF30 and I have a 53, and then I have 2 Dells. I like Dells a lot. They've been really, really great for me, man. If you find a couple Dells with some i7s in it, man, you'll be good to go. But if you can swing a setup from like Isaac, man, I would definitely, especially for a first timer, I would definitely, it's worth the investment. Yeah, it's a lot of money, but again, I mean, if you just want to get your feet wet, just eBay and a nice what the heck is it called, man? It's actually my favorite laptop right now, the one I'm using, E7250. That's my laptop of choice right now, aside from the ones I got from Isaac. Yeah, you can. I scored one for $400, a refurbished one with 1 terabyte and an i7 drive.
Nice.
Yeah.
How about, I'm just kind of running through the basics of getting into programming. How about a battery maintainer? We just throw a couple jump packs on there and call it good, or what?
I mean, Tommy does that all the time, but Tommy's a hack. You don't want to be like Tommy. So, I mean, you can't go wrong with a Schumacher. They're pricey though. Best bang for the buck. The Power Max brand, Autor brand, they're like half the price of a Schumacher, and they've been really good. That's the one I use actually.
Okay.
The Power Max, I believe it's called.
Yeah, I have the Schumacher one, and it works really well. Yeah, it is on the more expensive side. One note for that, and I can tell you why I know this. If you're hooking it up, it gives you the option while it's doing the flashing voltage, while you set it up for flash, you pick your voltage, you hit start. It'll give you the option to look at voltage or amperage going through the cables. Always pick amperage, because if one of those cables falls off of a GM side post battery because you didn't clamp it on there right, it'll still show you the voltage, but if you have it on amperage, it'll drop down to 0. So you know that it came disconnected in the middle of flashing a control module. So I have some personal experience with that.
Oh man, GM side posts is the worst invention ever, man.
The bane of my existence.
It's so bad.
I bought these little claws. They're little brass like claws that go over the bolts on the side post terminals just for that reason, so that I have something good to clamp to in these vehicles, because they're just awful.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I hate those things too with a passion, especially the ones where what was it, not the W bodies, man, I forget, like the Buick LeSabres.
Oh yeah,
where the battery is right there next to the belts.
Yeah.
That was pretty bad. I was gonna mention something else. Oh man, honestly, don't be afraid to buy some used devices, man. I've scored most of my my pod, my Whitetail pod.
Yeah.
I found that on eBay for $800. I ended up scoring from Facebook a VCM for $300. VCM1, the first one.
Okay.
And my MDI, I actually got from my dealer buddy for $300.
Oh, nice.
When he upgraded to MDI 2. Okay. So don't be afraid to buy something used. And like I said, so how much do I have there? Like, $1,600 or give or take, whatever. My math is horrible. So it's definitely good to look around, and little by little, you don't have to go gung ho, all at once. If you have the money, go for it. If not, then you can piece by piece your arsenal. That's what I did.
Pick your main brands. That's sort of what I did too. Just start with, Ford, GM, Chrysler, because that's what I see the most of, and I'll just build out from there. And that's worked out pretty well for me. All right. Well, you got any other main points you wanted to cover?
Honestly, don't be afraid to ask questions. Take your time. Read. the one of the coolest programming experiences I had was actually at my first time at Vision. I was in Dave Hobbs' J2534 class. And the one thing that I really walked away with, and you're going to laugh, at the beginning of the class, he gave us a sheet of paper that, had a bunch of questions to fill out. So you start filling out these questions, and it was just I found it odd. It was just really random. Where are you from? How many years you've been in business? I'm just like, why am I filling this out? At the end of the class, he's like, if I were to grade you on these papers, I would have failed all you guys. I'm like, what are you talking about? If you read it in a little fine print in the beginning, it says, do not write anything down. So if you actually would have taken the time to actually read the whole title,
sure, you
wouldn't have wrote anything down. So that was his whole point. He's like, make sure you read the instructions before you do anything.
Yeah, that's a good way to get it to stick in your head for sure.
It did. That was honestly one of the best away from Mr. Hobbs' class at Vision.
Nice. Cool. Well, that was pretty damn informative, I think. There's a lot of good information there for anybody who's interested in this stuff. So
anybody who has a question, man, feel free to message me. I'm pretty busy, but I do my best to help out whenever I can.
Well, thank you so much for joining me and sharing all that info today. That was awesome.
Cool, my dude. Thanks for having me again.
Okay, one more big thank you to Tomi for joining me on the show today. Again, tons of really good information in there for anybody that's interested in getting into programming modules on vehicles. But that is all I've got for you today. Remember to send in those questions for the listener Q&A episode. The email is going to be in the show notes. Other than that, let's get out there and start fixing the world one car at a time.